Hi, these are the top 20 films of 1984. When I say top, I mean my personal favourite films. Cheers. In at number 20, A Nightmare on Elm Street. One of the great horror films of the 1980s. A serial killer who murders you in your dreams is a terrifying idea, and horror master Wes Craven pulls it off perfectly. The character of Freddy Krueger is brilliantly realised through great makeup and a charismatic performance by Robert Englund. It also features Johnny Depp's film debut. He's as lucky in it as he has been in his recent court cases. In at number 19, The Home and the World. Sanjit Ray's brilliant political love triangle picture. It's got wonderfully complex characters and in-depth looks into people's political beliefs. It features superb performances from the Indian cast and is further proof that there was no need for white actors to play Indian roles, such as Alec Guinness in that year's A Passage to India.
My philosophy is you can do what you like.
Yeah. In at number 18, Stop Making Sense. One of the best concert movies ever made. Jonathan Demme directs as we watch a bare stage slowly fill up and come to life with the excellent music of Talking Heads. They're all excellent musicians, and David Byrne is so charismatic, especially in his big suit. In at number 17, Repo Man. This is about as punk as film can get. Alex Cox's sci-fi comedy is totally unique. Emilio Estevez stars as a punk rocker who gets into the car repossession industry. Guiding his way is the always excellent Harry Dean Stanton.
Not many people got a code to live by anymore. Hey, look at that. Look at those assholes over there.
Eventually they're tasked with getting a car driven by a lobotomized scientist with something very odd in his trunk. A brilliantly bizarre movie. In at number 16, Gremlins. A great Christmas film. Mainly because of the odd scene where Phoebe Cates discusses how her father was found dead in a chimney dressed as Santa.
He slipped and broke his neck. Died instantly. And that's how I found out there was no Santa Claus.
This comedy horror is Joe Dante at his best. Funny, chaotic, and featuring some excellent practical effects. In at number 15, Stranger Than Paradise. Jim Jarmusch immediately stands out with his directorial debut. It's a real treat just hanging out with the three characters in New York, Cleveland and Miami as they drink beer, play cards and just watch TV. I particularly enjoyed the scenes with the Hungarian grandmother.
Good for nothing. Hadd itt azt az asszony, ne vidd el a níszemet. You son of a bitch.
In at number 14, The Times of Harvey Milk. A great documentary about a great man and a terrible miscarriage of justice, featuring lots of footage of the first openly gay man elected to public office in California. We are shown Harvey Milk's rise, his tragic murder alongside the mayor of San Francisco, and the nonsense of the court case that followed. It's incredibly powerful stuff. In at number 13, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Probably the weakest of the original Indiana Jones trilogy, but nevertheless this was my favourite as a kid. Its tone is all over the place, from sidekick comedy children driving cars
Step on it!
Okie dokie, Dr. Jones, hold on to your potatoes!
to men having their hearts ripped out. I think that's why I loved it as a child. It's spooky, violent, silly, and one hell of a ride. Hell, the climax is basically a roller coaster. Harrison Ford is yet again brilliant as the archaeologist who carries a whip. It features outstanding set pieces, stunt work, and even a dance number to Anything Goes in Mandarin. It's an absolute mess, but a lot of fun. In at number 12, Starman, one of the most underrated John Carpenter movies. Jeff Bridges gives one of his best performances as an alien who takes the form of a dead man. He and the dead man's widow go on a cross-country journey to get him off the planet while being pursued by government agents who want to dissect him. Karen Allen is also brilliant as the woman who is at first terrified of this ghostly replica who has taken her hostage, but begins to understand him and care for him as their journey goes on. Bridges does the childlike confusion to perfection. It's a truly otherworldly performance. It's also a strangely romantic movie, helped along by Jack Nietzsche's excellent score.
Well, for your information, pal, that was a yellow light back there.
I watched you very carefully. Red light stop, green light go, yellow light go, very fast.
In at number 11, A Summer at Grandpa's, one of the great films about childhood. This Taiwanese film captures the feelings of summer holidays where there was little to do. While their mother is in hospital, a young boy and girl go to stay with their grandparents in the countryside. It's charming, relatable, but also unique. The children are innocent, but all around them are the harsh realities of life, most of which they can't quite comprehend. It's funny while having a little tragedy at all times present. A film that is so solidly made that it makes scenes of kids being bored somehow entertaining. Here are some of the other notable releases of 1984. 1984. Well, I guess they had to. Not a perfect adaptation of Orwell's classic, but it does feature some early work from master cinematographer Roger Deakins. Speaking of not entirely successful adaptations, David Lynch's Dune was a complete mess, but due to some truly horrid scenes and a pug, it's not totally unwatchable. Wolfgang Petersen followed his World War II classic Das Boot with The Never-Ending Story, which despite its title has a running time of 94 minutes. It was a solid year for comedy, with Ron Howard, Tom Hanks and Daryl Hannah making a splash with their charming romantic comedy about a man falling in love with a fish. Steve Martin's brilliant physical comedy was highlighted in All of Me, where he is forced to share his body with the spirit of Lily Tomlin.
Just do as I say.
It's a good thing Lily Tomlin's spirit wasn't put into the director David O. Russell, because those two do not get along.
Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. Get the fucking thing together, fuck you.
Fucking bitch! Hey bitch, I'm not here to be fucking yelled at. I worked on this fucking thing for 3 fucking years, not to have some fucking yell at me in front of the fucking crew when I'm trying to fucking help you, bitch!
Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. Fuck you, motherfucker.
Oh, bitch!
And Eddie Murphy was very funny in the first Beverly Hills Cop film.
You know, this is the cleanest and nicest police car I've ever been in my life. This thing's nicer than my apartment.
The scariest film of the year was the TV movie Threads, which shows what would happen to Sheffield in a nuclear war. It would certainly have been in my top 10 if it had a cinematic release, but it didn't, so it's not. But me, Chris and John did a long review of it, which you can find up here and down there. The best Friday the 13th film was released, Friday the 13th, the final chapter, the 4th film in the 12-part franchise. The Hong Kong film The Long Arm of the Law is often seen as the first of the Hong Kong heroic bloodshed films that John Woo would later go on to perfect. It's notable for having scenes shot in the astonishing Kowloon walled city and has some excellent shootouts.
What?
From Japan, there was Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind, one of Hayao Miyazaki's first great films. Also coming from Japan was the character Mr. Miyagi, who steals every scene he's in The Karate Kid, a story about a boy who, after being bullied, meets an eccentric Japanese man who says he can train him in karate. He then gets the boy to paint his house and clean his cars. Later, just by chance, the boy wins a karate tournament. Also coming from Japan is the word banzai. I'm really struggling for segues here. Which was used in the title of the cult film The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Across the Eighth Dimension. It's got a little bit of everything. Sci-fi action, Jeff Goldblum in a cowboy suit, and 80s pop rock. Speaking of pop rock, Purple Rain, the Prince musical. The film's a bit all over the place, but it's hard to deny the charisma that man had. And one of my favourite performances of 1984 was in Robert Altman's Secret Honor, where Philip Baker Hall steals every scene he's in. Well, he's the only one in it. It's just Richard Nixon getting drunk and trying to sort things out in his own mind.
Testing 1, 2, 3, 4. Roberto, I told you before that this thing doesn't, because there's no, you know.
Right, back to my list. In at number 10, Romancing the Stone. A rip-roaringly fun adventure romantic comedy. Kathleen Turner and Michael Douglas are tremendous together as two people caught up in the search for a priceless emerald in the jungles of Colombia. Their chemistry is quite something, with Turner's fish-out-of-water romance novelist and Douglas's exotic bird smuggler at first clashing, but then falling in love during the perilous adventure. Rounding the film off is a hilarious supporting performance from Danny DeVito.
Take me back to Queens and kill me. Don't let me die in a jungle like a goddamn snake.
Ralph, goddammit, I don't care what you gotta do. Just get me that map.
Robert Zemeckis uses a mixture of humour and action, which works perfectly, and he would continue to utilise those with his next two 80s movies. The film is often incorrectly seen as a rip-off of Indiana Jones, when in fact it was written 3 years before Raiders of the Lost Ark was released. In at number 9, Blood Simple. The Coen brothers burst onto the scene and immediately make an impact with this neo-noir. Dan Hedaya is brilliant as a bar owner who hires M. Emmett Walsh's private detective, a great Coen brothers character if there ever was one, to kill his wife and the bartender she is having an affair with. Things then get darker and darker. There are two standout scenes which rank up there with some of the Coens' best. One involves a man who doesn't seem to be quite dead yet, and the other is a thrilling assassination attempt in an apartment. The Coen brothers with their first film made a classic, and they haven't stopped making them since. In at number 8, Streetwise. One of the greatest documentaries of all time. This look at the lives lived by homeless kids in Seattle pulls no punches. Seattle was chosen as it labelled itself America's most livable city. The film does an outstanding job of getting us to know and care about these kids. Kids who do what they have to get by. Kids from broken homes. Teenage prostitutes, beggars and thieves. At no point is it sensationalism, it just shows us these people and their lives. The teenagers are all likeable, and it's really hard to watch what they go through. There are some truly tragic, heartbreaking moments, and the worst thing you can do after watching it is look up what happened to them after. It's documentary filmmaking at its finest. People on the street aren't nuisances to be ignored. They're people with nowhere to go, people the state has let down, people with hopes and dreams with little chance of getting anywhere near them. Streetwise definitely leaves an impression. In at number 7, Once Upon a Time in America. The master Sergio Leone rounds off his Once Upon a Time trilogy in style with this, his final film. In this crime epic, we follow a group of Jewish gangsters from childhood to old men. Well, the ones who survive to be old men. The cast is superb, with Robert De Niro and James Woods leading as two men with a knack for violence. It's a brutal and grim film, but a beautiful one too. The cinematography is something else, as is Ennio Morricone's stunning score. The non-linear storytelling moving backwards and forwards through history works a treat. Leone is in complete control of the story and of the camera. It's a powerful film that manages to make you side with a man capable of doing truly awful things. It's a long film, but it just glides by. Shockingly, the film was taken away from Leone and edited for an American release, which cut over 100 minutes and was restructured to tell it chronologically. Of course, it was an unmitigated disaster, and luckily that version has been ignored and everyone can see it the way it was originally intended. After this, Leone wanted to direct a film about the siege of Leningrad. Just imagine what he would have done with that. Unfortunately, he died 5 years after the release of Once Upon a Time in America at the age of 60, but his legacy lives on as one of the greatest directors of all time. In at number 6, Paris, Texas. Yet another classic from 1984. Wim Wenders' road movie is something truly beautiful, in its striking visual style that makes the most of the US countryside to its gentle human touch. It's all incredibly beautiful. Harry Dean Stanton gives one of the best performances of the 80s, playing a pretty much mute man who is wandering the American landscape aimlessly. It's a film of distinct parts. The journey with Stanton and his brother, played equally brilliantly by Dean Stockwell, the time he spends in LA with the son he abandoned, and the journey to find the child's mother. It's a very moving picture, but it's also incredibly funny, with the writing and performances finding great comedy in the details. It's quirky, but all within the realms of reality. It's a little odd, but it's never forcing itself to be strange. A deeply affecting cinematic gem. In at number 5, Amadeus, Milos Forman's Best Picture-winning biopic. There is so much life in this film about the rivalry between the 18th century composers Mozart and Salieri. F. Murray Abraham gives a wickedly fun performance as the jealous Salieri, and Tom Hulce gives an off-the-wall performance as the childish and energetic Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. The story is a highly fictionalized account of their lives, but it never pretends to be anything different, with Mozart even sporting an 80s rocker-style pink wig. It's all larger than life to live up to the wonderful music these men created. The sets, locations, cinematography and costumes are all gorgeous. It's a decadent thing to behold. And as with so many of Milos Forman's best films, there is humour throughout. You can see why this won so many awards. It also led up to my favourite joke in the movie within the movie, Last Action Hero.
Watch it, Jack. He killed Mozart.
In a movie?
Amadeus, he won 8 Oscars.
Then you told me not to trust you. You said you killed Mozart.
Oh, who?
Zard.
You know, I kill a lot of people. I can't remember half of them.
In at number 4, The Terminator, an incredibly satisfying sci-fi, horror, time travel, action classic. If you ignore Piranha 2: The Spawning, which you absolutely shouldn't, this is James Cameron's first proper movie, and what a movie. Not only does it work as a sci-fi, as a horror, as an action film, and as a romance, but is also one of the cleanest time travel stories ever told. Time travel is fun in movies, but rarely does it make any sense at all. Here it is perfect. There's no changing the past, as it's already happened. This is all kind of ruined in the sequel, but that film is a great example of nonsense time travel being tremendous fun. Linda Hamilton is very good as the mother of humanity's only hope, although the changes her character go through in the sequel will make her far more interesting. Michael Biehn is dashing and dirty as the soldier sent back to protect her, and Arnold Schwarzenegger is terrifyingly believable as a near-invincible robot assassin. He genuinely doesn't feel like a real human, a walking emotionless weapon. This is the film that made him a star. It's crazy to think that he would make a career as the good guy. He's so good as an unstoppable villain here. The effects are excellent, the score iconic, and it's just really, really neat in both senses of the word. One hell of a sci-fi tale. In at number 3, this is Spinal Tap, one of the greatest comedies of all time. Karl's son Rob, in his directorial debut, shows that funny genes clearly run in the Reiner family. This mockumentary about a British rock band is a laugh-a-minute picture.
If I told them once, I told them 100 times to put Spinal Tap first and Puppet Show last.
It's a morale builder, isn't it?
While all the time feeling completely realistic. Everyone is hilarious in it. Michael McKean as lead singer David St. Hubbins.
I do not for one think that the problem was that the band was down. I think that the problem may have been that there was a Stonehenge monument on the stage that was in danger of being crushed by a dwarf.
Christopher Guest as lead guitar, Nigel Tufnell.
You put it on the bread like this, see?
But then if you keep folding it, it keeps breaking,
Why would you keep
and then
folding it?
everything has to be folded
and then it's this, and I don't want this. I want large bread so that I can put this.
Right.
So then it's like this, but this doesn't work because then it's all.
Because it hangs out like that.
Look.
Yeah.
Would you be holding
No,
this?
I wouldn't want to eat. I wouldn't want to put that in my mouth.
All right. Hey,
No, you're right.
exhibit A, and then we move on to this.
And Harry Shearer as bassist Derek Smalls.
He died. He choked on. The official explanation was he choked on vomit. Well, they can't prove whose vomit it was. They don't have facilities in Scotland Yard to print.
You can't really dust for vomit.
The way the band has evolved over time is genius.
You know what I need. Oh, maybe you don't. Listen, it's getting louder every day. Listen, it's like working on a sex farm. Plowing through your bean field. Getting out my pitchfork. Poking your head.
And the relationship between them all feels so believable and is absolutely riveting. The film manages to do all of this while being hilarious throughout. The DVD was one of my favourite purchases as a teenager. You got the film, nearly another whole film and deleted scenes, and audio commentary by the band in character. The band have come back for concerts and guest appearances, but thank God there wasn't a sequel, for there's no way you could recreate this. It's comedic magic. In at number 2, The Killing Fields. A harrowing and powerful picture, based on the experiences of an American and Cambodian journalist. The film shows the takeover of Cambodia by the Khmer Rouge and the genocide that followed. It's a difficult subject to deal with in a sensitive manner, but this film does this by focusing on the friendship between the two colleagues. Sam Waterston is fantastic as Sidney Schanberg, but it's Hayne S. Knorr as Dith Pran that really drives the picture. He had himself been incarcerated in a concentration camp by the Khmer Rouge, and his wife died there during childbirth. His personal experiences come through in his performance. It's remarkably moving. Tragically, he was shot and killed in Los Angeles 12 years after winning the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor. But his work here and in other movies will live on. Roland Joffre and the British crew did an outstanding job showing the chaos in the first half and in creating a real sense of hopelessness in the second. It's a tough watch, but an important one. The atrocities that happened in Cambodia should never be forgotten. And in at number 1, Ghostbusters. Is this objectively the best film of the year? No, but it's one that meant a lot to me as a kid, and has continued to do so over the years. I don't think anyone involved knew how good it would turn out. It's lightning in a bottle. Dan Aykroyd's original script was deemed unfilmable and understandably as bonkers as Dan Aykroyd is. Ivan Reitman brought on Harold Ramis to refine the script along with Aykroyd. They got funding before the script was even finished. The original lineup was meant to be Aykroyd, Eddie Murphy and James Belushi, but this was changed after Belushi's death. The final lineup of Aykroyd, Ramis and Bill Murray worked perfectly. They're odd losers. Bums mainly out for themselves. The fact that they become pest control for ghosts somehow makes perfect sense for these people.
Everything was fine with our system until the power grid was shut off by Dickless here.
They caused an explosion.
Is this true?
Yes, it's true. This man has no dick.
The supporting cast is also fantastic, including Ernie Hudson, Rick Moranis, Annie Potts and Sigourney Weaver. The film is a great New York picture, with the city itself being a character.
I love this town!
It works on a comedic level and as a light horror. It has a huge scale helped by wonderful special effects. It has this brilliant, unique, chaotic quality.
What the hell are you doing?
It was also a triumph of marketing, from the simple, iconic poster to Ray Parker Jr.'s incredibly fun pop song. It feels kind of accidental that it turned out so well, and they've been trying to recreate its uniqueness ever since, and failing every time. The sequel that arrived 5 years later, just tried to do the same thing again and was okay. The 2016 version tried to use wacky improv comedy and fell flat on its face. And this year's Ghostbusters Afterlife treats the original as something to be in awe of.
Do you want some coffee, Mr. Tully?
Do I?
Yes, have some.
Yes, have some.
Completely missing its tone. Greedy fools out for themselves who stumble and fumble their way to saving the world. It's not Casablanca or Citizen Kane. It's a nonsense comedy adventure film that just somehow manages to be pure entertainment in its finest form. Ghostbusters takes a funny, silly premise, and with a great cast, great special effects, and great people behind and in front of the camera, it just ended up being great fun, and one of the best films of the 1980s. Right, so counting down my top 20. In at number 20, A Nightmare on Elm Street. In at number 19, The Home and the World. In at number 18, Stop Making Sense. In at number 17, Repo Man. In at number 16, Gremlins. In at number 15, Stranger Than Paradise. In at number 14, The Times of Harvey Milk. In at number 13, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. In at number 12, Starman. In at number 11, A Summer at Grandpa's. In at number 10, Romancing the Stone. In at number 9, Blood Simple. In at number 8, Streetwise. In at number 7, Once Upon a Time in America. In at number 6, Paris, Texas. In at number 5, Amadeus. In at number 4, The Terminator. In at number 3, This is Spinal Tap. In at number 2, The Killing Fields. And in at number 1, Ghostbusters. Well, those are my top 20 films of 1984. There's probably loads I've missed out, so what are your top 10 films of 1984? Cheers.